The light was soft, warmer than the cold darkness she remembered. Kylara blinked slowly, her eyes dry and heavy. She expected pain, cold floor. Maybe chains, but felt none. Instead, she felt warmth, a soft blanket, and something strange beneath. Her a bed. She turned her head slowly, every muscle sore. Wooden walls surrounded her. Not metal or glass. A window was open slightly, and a breeze moved a light curtain. Birds chirped somewhere outside. Peaceful and calm. This place was not a war zone. This was not the battlefield where she had fallen. Last thing she remembered, fire in the sky. Her ship crashing, blood in her mouth, lungs burning, her fingers digging into snow she had closed. Her eyes to die, so why was she here? Still breathing, Kylara sat up slowly. Her body screaming in protest. She looked down at her side, wrapped in clean bandages. Her arm, once burned and broken, now healed with strange patches. But this was not alien tech. It was primitive, yet careful. She was wearing soft cotton clothes. Too big for her, not her warrior suit, not her armor. Panic rose in her chest. Where were her weapons, her blade, her energy core? Her comlink, all gone. She tried to stand, but almost fell. Then the door opened gently. A human male stepped inside, tall and rugged, dark hair, light eyes, and a limp in his walk. He held a tray with something hot and smelled strange but good. "Hey," he said softly, his voice calm. "You're awake." Kylara narrowed her eyes, her hands clenching the blanket. "Where am I?" she asked with a weak growl. "My cabin," he said, setting the tray on a small table beside the bed. "You crashed in the woods near here 3 nights ago. I found you almost frozen, bleeding, nearly dead. Why didn't you kill me?" She asked bluntly. Humans were not trusted. Not in her galaxy stories. They were new, unpredictable, sometimes dangerous. The man gave a half smile. Tired but kind. Didn't seem right. He replied simply, "You needed help." He pulled a chair beside her bed and sat down. "My name's Evan," he said. "I used to be a soldier. Retired now, kind of." Kylara said nothing. Her heart beating fast. Her kind never showed weakness, but she was weak, and he knew it. He pointed at the tray. "Soup," he said. "Not poison, I swear." She stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly, she reached for the bowl. The smell was strange, but her stomach growled. She drank it slowly, her body warming from inside. Evan didn't speak much while she ate. He just watched her, like he was studying an alien, which she was, when she finished. She placed the bowl down carefully, then looked at him again. "You are not afraid of me," she said. Evan shrugged. "Seen a lot in war," he replied. "You don't scare me." Kylara leaned back, her strength returning little by little. "I am Kylara of the Veery Blades," she said quietly. "I was commander of the 7th Flame Fleet. My enemies hunt me." Evan nodded slowly. "Sounds heavy," he said. "Well, good thing I live off the grid." She blinked. "Hey, not understanding?" He chuckled. "Means no one knows I'm here," he explained. "And now? No one knows you're here either, for the first time in a long time." Kylara didn't feel like prey. She didn't feel hunted, just tired, confused, and safe. "Why help me?" she asked again, softer now. Evan looked toward the window. "Thinking, I don't know," he said. "Maybe I saw myself in you, half dead, tired of fighting. Maybe I just couldn't leave someone to die." Kylara closed her eyes briefly, not to die this time, but to rest. She didn't know this human, didn't trust him, but something about his words, his actions, they felt true. Maybe tomorrow she would try to escape. Maybe she would find her gear, contact her world. But tonight she would sleep in a warm bed with a full stomach and no pain in her side. She had closed her eyes to die, but fate, or this strange Human had given her something else, a second breath, and it scared her more than any enemy ever had. Kylara woke up to the smell of something frying. Her body was still sore, but not as weak as before. She sat up slowly and looked around again. Sunlight came through the window, soft and golden. She had hoped last night was a dream, but it wasn't. The soft bed, the warm room, and the strange human, Evan, all real. Her fingers reached down to touch the bandages again. Still there, clean and tight. Someone had taken care. She stood up. Her legs shaky but strong enough, she moved toward the door and followed the sound. Wood creaked under her bare feet, unfamiliar but not hostile. In the kitchen, Evan stood over a stove, flipping something in a pan. He wore a simple shirt, sleeves rolled up, revealing his arms. They were covered in scars, thin lines, burns, and deep marks. Signs of many battles. Kylara leaned against the doorframe, silent. Evan noticed her and gave a small smile. "Morning," he said. "You're up earlier than I thought." She nodded once, watching him carefully. "You were a soldier," she said. More a statement than a question. "Yeah," he replied. "Used to fight in the Earth-Mars border war. Now I cook eggs and fix fences." Kylara stepped into the room, slow and alert. She sat at the wooden table, eyes scanning everything. No weapons nearby, just a small knife and a loaf of bread. "Why did you stop fighting?" she asked. Evan placed a plate in front of her, then sat across the table. He looked at her with calm eyes, tired but kind. "Lost too many friends," he said softly. "Watched people die for politics. After a while, I just wanted peace." Kylara picked up a fork and poked the food. She didn't recognize it, but it smelled good. She took a small bite, salty, warm, rich in taste. Different from rations or protein packs. "Your body is healing well," Evan said. "Rest a few more days. Then you'll be strong again." Kylara nodded slowly. She studied his hands. Large, calloused, and steady. He was not afraid of her, not even curious. It felt strange, like he saw her not as an alien, but just a person. "You don't ask questions," she said. "Most people would. I figured you'd talk when you're ready." Evan replied, "I've learned not to push." Hey. Silence filled the room for a moment. Kylara finally said, "They'll come looking for me. My enemies don't leave loose ends." Evan didn't flinch. "Let them come," he said calmly. "This place is hard to find. And I have defenses." Kylara raised an eyebrow. "You have weapons, I have experience," he said, smiling slightly, "and a few surprises." Buried around the cabin, she looked at him for a long time. There was strength in him, not the loud kind, but quiet and deep. She respected that. After breakfast, Evan gave her a clean shirt and pants. They were too big, but better than her damaged gear. He helped her walk outside for fresh air. The cabin was in a forest clearing, surrounded by tall trees and open sky. There were birds, small animals, and even flowers. Things Kylara hadn't noticed in years. No sirens, no explosions, no commanders shouting in her ear. Just nature. She sat on a bench while Evan fed some stray dogs nearby. They wagged their tails and licked his hands. He laughed, a sound she hadn't heard in a long time, not from anyone, not even herself. "You care for these animals?" she asked. "Yeah," he said, patting a dog gently. "Most of them were abandoned during the last storm. I bring them food and keep them safe." Kylara looked down, her voice quiet. "In my world, only the strong are protected." Evan glanced at her. "Sometimes, strength is helping those who can't help themselves," he said. "Sometimes, kindness is harder than war." That hit something inside her, a place she thought had turned cold long ago. As the sun lowered, Kylara helped him gather firewood. Her strength was coming back, little by little. She still didn't trust him fully. She couldn't, but she respected him more now. Dinner, they ate in silence, not awkward, but peaceful. She watched the firelight reflect off his face, so human, so different, and yet, not so different at all. Later that night, Kylara returned to her room. She stood at the window and looked at the stars. Somewhere up there, her enemy still searched. Somewhere up there, her past waited for her. But here, in this small wooden cabin, a human with battle scars had given her shelter. Not because she was useful, not because she had power, but because he chose to. For now, that was enough. She lay back down in the soft bed, still alert, still cautious, but for the first time in years, she let herself rest without fear. Kylara stood by the window as the wind moved the curtains. The room smelled like wood, herbs, and something new: peace. But peace was a strange thing for her, almost uncomfortable. She had been trained to survive, not to relax. It had been 3 days since she woke in the human's cabin. Her body healed faster than expected. But her mind still raced. Every sound made her alert. Every shadow felt like a trap. Yet, nothing happened. Evan stayed calm, never asked about her past. He made food, repaired things around the house, and fed the animals. He spoke when needed, then let silence sit like a friend. That silence had power. It made her think. One afternoon, Kylara stepped outside while Evan was chopping wood. She watched quietly. Arms crossed, he worked slowly, with a limp, yet every movement was clean and strong. "You fight like a soldier," she said, breaking the silence. "Cut like one too," he replied, smiling without looking up. "Learn the hard way." She walked closer, watching the blade hit the wood again and again. "You live alone?" she asked. "Not always," he said. She asked, "Don't humans hate loneliness?" Evan paused, wiped his forehead, and leaned on the axe. "Not everyone," he said. "Some of us just got tired. Too many graves, too many names to remember." Kylara understood that too well. She looked away, remembering faces, warriors she had buried in silence. No time to mourn during war. Only numbers, not names. She helped him carry the chopped wood into a small shed. Inside, tools hung on the walls, all organized neatly. He handed her a jug of water, and she drank deeply. "You have discipline," she said. "You keep your place ready like a soldier." Evan nodded. "Can't turn it off," he said, "but I try." That night, a storm rolled in. Rain hit the windows. Wind howled like a beast outside. Kylara couldn't sleep. Her senses were too alert. The sound reminded her of nights hiding in enemy territory. She stepped into the living room where Evan sat by the fire. He looked up and motioned for her to sit. She did, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "Storms scare you?" he asked. "No," she said quickly, then paused. "They remind me of running." "Running from what?" he asked, gently. Kylara stared at the flames. "My people were betrayed," she whispered. "A message led us into a trap. Half my fleet was destroyed in the ambush. I survived only because my ship was late." Evan didn't speak, just listened. "I chased the enemy, but they were ready," she continued. "I lost everything. My rank, my team, my purpose. And then you crashed here." Evan said softly. Kylara nodded slowly. "I closed my eyes to die," she said, "but woke up in a human's bed." Evan added a log to the fire, the crackle filling the silence. "Life doesn't always give us what we want," he said, "but sometimes it gives us what we need." Kylara looked at him, her face hard but eyes softening. "You are strange," she said. "Most humans would sell me for tech or money. I don't want anything from you." Evan said, "No deals, no tricks, just rest, for a long time." They sat together without speaking. The fire warmed the room, and for the first time, Kylara's body relaxed fully. Her fingers stopped twitching toward a weapon. Her jaw unclenched. "Do you ever miss the war?" she asked suddenly. Evan sighed. I miss the people, he said. The bond, the loyalty, but not the noise. Not the killing. Kylara nodded, understanding him more than she expected. I've never met a human like you, she said. Same here, he replied, smiling. You're the first alien I've ever made breakfast for. A small laugh escaped her lips before she could stop it. It was dry and rough, unused to joy. She quickly looked away, almost embarrassed, but Evan didn't tease. He just smiled gently. You should laugh more, he said. It suits you. Kylara stood up, pulling the blanket tighter around her. Maybe, she said. If I stay alive long enough, then we'll keep you alive, Evan said firmly. No matter what comes, she walked back to her room for the first time since crashing. She left the door slightly open, not because she was careless, but because, maybe, just maybe, she didn't need to keep the world out completely anymore. And somewhere deep inside her, the wall she had built so high and strong now had a small crack, and through that crack, a warm light had started to slip in. The morning came with fog, thick and white like smoke. Kylara stepped outside the cabin, her boots pressing softly into the wet grass. Evan was already in the yard, checking a wire fence near the tree line. She watched him for a while, noticing how he moved with habit, alert, trained, but peaceful. It had been a week since she crashed. Her body was healed, her wounds closed, and her strength had returned. But her heart, it still carried weight. Too many memories, too many names, too much silence. Evan turned around and waved. Storm took out the corner post. He said, I'll fix it before sundown. I'll help, she replied. Picking up the tools beside him, working beside him felt strange at first, but also normal to normal. That afternoon, Kylara stood alone in the clearing. Looking up at the sky, something pulled at her chest, a pressure, a whisper. Like her blood remembered something before her brain did. She narrowed her eyes, a flash in the clouds, not lightning, not sunlight. It was something else, something artificial. Her heart skipped. She ran to Evan, who was inside sorting wires near the fireplace. We need to talk, she said sharply. He looked up, eyes narrowing. Go on? Kylara grabbed a stick and drew symbols on the dusty table. That flash, she said. It was a Lorbit scan. Someone's looking for you. Evan asked, already reaching for a small device on the wall. Yes, she said, her voice cold again. My enemies use pulse scans to track escapees. They must have followed my trail to this sector. Evan pressed a hidden button behind a wooden panel. Part of the wall slid open, revealing a dusty old case. He opened it, revealing weapons not alien, but advanced human gear. Pulse rifle, EMP grenades, motion sensor discs. Kylara raised her eyebrow. You kept these? Never throw away what you might need someday, Evan replied, loading the rifle. Thought I was done with this life, but I guess it's not done with me. Kylara stepped back, arms folded. I should leave. She said, if they scan again, they'll find me. Evan looked at her, face hard now. Serious. This cabin is protected, he said. Sensor shields, cloaking mesh in the trees, and backup batteries underground. You didn't crash in the middle of nowhere, Kylara. You crashed into the safest place I could offer. She stared at him, unsure how to feel. She was used to betrayal, not protection. She opened her mouth to argue, but something stopped her. He meant it, every word. I won't let them hurt you, he said simply. She turned away, hiding the strange feeling in her chest. Later that night, they worked together in silence. They reinforced the windows with reflective mesh, laid down motion discs in the tree line, and set up a drone to watch the sky. Kylara moved like the soldier. She was quick, sharp, and focused, but inside, her thoughts spun like a storm. Why did he care? Why stay and fight for her? What did she mean to him? As the stars came out, The drone blinked red. "Something's coming," Evan said, looking at the screen. Kylara leaned over his shoulder. "A ship, small, dark, and fast, entering the atmosphere. That's a scythe tracker," she whispered. "Fast, armed, and deadly." Evan turned to her. "How many crew?" "Usually 3, she said. 2 hunters. 1 pilot." Evan nodded, his voice calm. "Then we need to make this place invisible, together." They shut off all lights and powered down the visible cabin systems. The outer cloaking mesh glowed faint blue, blending the home into the trees. Inside, everything went quiet. Only the fire remained low. Kylara stood by the window, her fists tight. She hadn't planned to survive. She didn't plan for this human, this warmth, this second chance. Now someone wanted to take it away, and that made her angry. "I won't run," she said. Evan looked at her and nodded. "Neither will I." They stood together in the dim light, 2 warriors, from 2 worlds, bound by battle, and now, something more, outside. The wind picked up, somewhere. Above the clouds, death circled, but inside the cabin, 2 fighters prepared not to die, but to protect, to defend something fragile. Not a planet, not a mission, but trust, and maybe, just maybe, it's the beginning of something worth living for. The night air turned colder, heavier, as the ship broke through the clouds. Kylara stood just outside the cabin door, her hand resting on a blade Evan had given her. It wasn't alien tech, but solid steel, simple, deadly, and honest. Evan moved beside her, placing silent trip mines along the edge of the tree line. "They'll land close," she said quietly. "They want a fast kill and a fast exit." Evan nodded without a word. His face was calm, but his eyes sharp. The soldier in him had awakened, suddenly. A sharp humming cut through the wind. The trees trembled, and then a crash. The enemy ship landed only meters away. Sleek, black, and crawling with blue lights. Kylara's breath slowed, her body lowering into battle stance. Evan crouched behind a pile of logs, rifle aimed and ready. The ship hissed open. Releasing steam and shadow, 3 figures stepped out. Tall, armored, moving like ghosts, scythe hunters, just as she feared. Their eyes glowed green. Scanning the area with sharp movements, "They're using heat vision," Kylara whispered. "They'll sweep the woods first." Evan activated the EMP pulse disc and tossed it toward the nearest bush. It clicked once, then burst with a silent flash. The lead hunter paused, systems glitching. That was enough. Kylara moved fast, silent as smoke. She struck the confused hunter with the blade, straight through the neck. No scream. Just a flicker of light and collapse. "One down," she whispered, breath steady. But the other 2 turned sharply. Raising plasma rifles, they fired blue bolts cutting through trees and burning the ground. Evan rolled behind a rock and returned fire. Sharp and precise. His bullet hit one in the leg, metal cracking. Kylara ducked and sprinted to cover. The second hunter charged her position. She waited, calm, focused, then jumped, kicking him into a trap wire. An explosion burst beneath him, sending parts flying. Only one enemy left, the pilot. Smarter, faster, and now very angry. He took cover behind the ship and activated a signal flare. A beacon shot into the sky. Kylara's eyes widened. He called for backup. She shouted, "We have minutes." Evan ran beside her, tossing her an extra clip. "We take him down before that ship arrives," he said, no matter what. Together, they rushed the pilot. 1 from each side. The pilot fired, missing. Evan by inches, Kylara slid under the ship, cutting the pilot's ankle from below. He fell, but turned and aimed straight at her head. Time slowed. Kylara knew she couldn't dodge in time. Then, a gunshot. Evan, from behind. The bullet hit the pilot's arm. Forcing the weapon away, Kylara didn't wait. She rose and drove her blade through the pilot's chest. He jerked once, then went still. Silence fell. Only the sound of wind through broken trees remained. Kylara breathed hard, sweat on her forehead. Evan stood nearby, bleeding from a cut on his side. He smiled slightly, still alive. He said, "Not bad." Kylara nodded, then looked up. The beacon still blinked above. Another ship would come. More would follow. "We can't stay." She said, "They'll keep hunting." Evan looked around at the destroyed trees, the broken ground, the burned grass. "This place was my peace," he whispered. "Now it's a battlefield again." "I'm sorry," Kylara said, truly meaning it. He looked at her and shook his head. "No regrets," he said. "You're worth it." Those words hit deeper than any weapon ever could. She looked away, swallowing the strange tightness in her chest. "We have to go," she repeated. "We need to disappear before the next ship tracks us." Evan opened a hidden door in the ground, an escape tunnel leading to the mountain trail. "Let's move," he said. "I've got supplies down there, maps, gear, everything we need." Kylara turned once, looking back at the cabin. It was still standing, still glowing with heat and light, but it was no longer safe. "I will come back," she whispered. "When the war ends, I will rebuild this place." Evan smiled as he picked up his gear. "We'll rebuild it together," he said, and with that, they disappeared into the earth, two warriors running not from fear, but towards something unknown. The battle was not over, but now. She was no longer alone. The tunnel opened into the base of a rocky hill. It was dark and quiet, surrounded by thick trees and cold wind. Kylara helped Evan climb out, his side still bleeding lightly. They didn't speak, their breaths fast and heavy, but in sync. Behind them, smoke rose from the forest. The enemy's ship was gone, but the danger remained. Kylara scanned the sky, her senses sharp. No more flares. No new ships for now. They were safe. Evan leaned against a tree. Breathing hard, Kylara stepped closer. Pulled out a small medical injector. "This will hurt," she warned. He gave a dry smile. "Not my first stab." She injected the medicine quickly, and he groaned as the burn hit. But within seconds, the bleeding slowed and the pain dulled. Kylara looked into his eyes. "You saved me back there," she said. "You almost died for me." Evan shrugged. "I told you," he said. "We fight together." They walked deeper into the forest, following a hidden trail that Evan had memorized. Hours passed, the sun began to rise, and the sky turned soft with pink and gold. Finally, they reached a small cave behind a waterfall. Dry, hidden, and safe, at least for now, inside. Evan sat near a rock wall while Kylara lit a small heat stone. Warmth filled the space slowly. She removed her outer armor and sat across from him. Silence stretched between them, not awkward, but full. "I wasn't always a commander," Kylara said suddenly, her voice low, her eyes fixed on the firelight. Evan looked up but said nothing. "I was born on a slave planet," she continued. "My parents were miners. Breaking stone for alien warlords, I was taken as a child. Trained in the Empire's warrior program." Evan's eyes softened. She never spoke like this before. Not about herself, not with emotion. "They taught us pain before they taught us language," she said. "They broke our minds to rebuild us as weapons. I rose through ranks, earned medals, led fleets. But inside, I was still that child, afraid and angry." Evan moved closer. Slowly, his voice gentle. "You don't have to carry all of that alone anymore." Kylara's hands trembled slightly. "I never told anyone," she whispered. "I killed to survive, followed orders without question. I thought if I became the strongest, I'd never feel weak again." She finally looked up, her eyes shining in the dim light. "But you? You treat me like a person," not a tool. Evan nodded slowly. You are a person, he said, and no past can change the fact that you're here now. He reached out, gently touching her hand. She didn't pull away. No one ever held my hand, she said, voice cracking. Not like this. You've held blades all your life, he said softly. Maybe now. It's time to hold something else. Kylara laughed once, short and sharp. Are you always this poetic? She asked. Evan grinned. Only on days I survive alien assassins. For the first time in a long time, Kylara let herself smile. Not a warrior's smirk, but something real. She leaned her head against the cave wall. Tired but calm, outside, the waterfall's sound covered the world. Inside, the silence between them was no longer empty. Hours passed, and they rested, taking turns keeping watch at night. They shared a meal of dry protein bars and boiled roots. Evan found nearby, no feast, but enough, you could leave, she said later. As stars blinked overhead, I've brought war into your life again. Evan shook his head. I left the war, he said. But I never left the part of me that fights for what matters. You matter. Kylara closed her eyes, not in pain or fear this time, but in quiet acceptance. She had lost her rank, her home, her past. But in this cave, with this strange, kind human, she had found something new. Not just survival, but a reason to keep moving forward. And maybe, just maybe, the warrior didn't need to carry the weight alone anymore. The stars were still visible when Kylara woke. The fire in the cave had died down, but the warmth remained. Evan was already awake. Sitting near the entrance, watching the sky, he held his rifle across his lap, but his hands were relaxed. Kylara sat beside him, pulling her cloak tighter. They said nothing for a while. Only the sound of water from the falls and distant birds filled the silence. They didn't send another ship, Evan finally said. Kylara nodded. They'll regroup first, she replied. They don't waste resources, they study. They plan, they wait. But so do we, Evan said calmly. Kylara glanced at him. You still want to keep fighting? She asked. I'm tired of running. Evan looked at her, his eyes steady. We don't have to run, he said. But we don't have to fight the same way either. There are others out there. People like you, lost, hunted, alone. She looked at the stars, remembering the names of fallen warriors. Her old fleet, her people, her planet, all. Shadows now, but Evan's words sparked something new, something alive. You think we can build something? She asked. From this, he smiled. Not just something, he said, a sanctuary. Kylara didn't respond right away. The idea was strange. Not war, not revenge, but rebuilding. She had spent years destroying, chasing, surviving. Now he spoke of planting, healing, protecting. You're serious, she said. Evan nodded. I've seen enough death, he replied. Let's be the people who stop it instead of causing more. She stared at him for a long moment, then slowly, she stood. If we do this, she said, we do it my way, safe, smart, hidden. Evan rose beside her. Agreed, together. They hiked deeper into the hills by mid-morning. They reached a wide-open valley, untouched land, surrounded by natural walls of rock and trees, the perfect place to disappear and to begin again. Kylara knelt on the soft earth, feeling it between her fingers. She had touched many planets, but never like this, never with the thought of staying. We'll need supplies, she said. Water filters, solar panels, hidden coms. Evan tapped his datapad. I've got contacts, he said, people who owe me favors. They spent days mapping the area, setting traps, building shelters at night. They rested under stars, shared stories by firelight. Kylara began to laugh more, even if just a little. Evan taught her how to cook over fire, She taught him how to detect cloaked drones. One evening, while walking along a ridge, Kylara stopped and looked at the horizon. "I used to dream of dying in battle," she said, "because I thought that was the only way to prove I mattered." Evan stepped beside her. "And now?" he asked gently. "Now," she whispered, "I want to live, not just for myself, but for every warrior who never got the chance." Evan placed a hand on her shoulder. "No one can erase the past," he said, "but we can build something beautiful on top of it." They started gathering others, fugitives, survivors, lost souls from different stars. Kylara's name still carried weight in the shadows of the galaxy, and Evan's steady hands gave them hope. Together, they became more than a team. They became a refuge, a place where broken warriors could rest, a place where strength was measured not by the blade, but by the choice to protect, to rebuild, to care. Kylara often stood at the edge of the new camp, watching the lights flicker inside the tents and domes, listening to children laugh, to music from old speakers. This was not the world she came from, but it was the one she helped create. And every night, when the stars rose high, she looked up and remembered that moment, the day she closed her eyes to die, but woke up in a human's bed instead. That moment didn't just save her, it changed her. It gave her the path forward, a path she would walk, not as a soldier alone, but as a protector, a builder, and a warrior who finally learned what it meant to live.